My name is Ned Schauble. My wife Debbie and I have lived in Rocky River for decades. Our children are graduates of Rocky River schools, and we're here because what we're hearing about the Board of Education and the school system is that it's becoming less committed to the traditional values and the things that we believe are essential to the quality of the education in Rocky River, and that ties into the community, that ties into the value of our property. There are a lot of reasons why we live in Rocky River. One of the reasons is that we've traditionally had a very strong school system. Now, if we're hearing correctly, there are people who are trying to revise the curriculum. There are people that are trying to revise what is taught in our schools. And we believe that the essential element of our school system should focus on integrity in education, basic values that we all, I think, can agree to, and the fact that we should adhere to the U.S. Constitution, the laws of our country, and that we should emphasize the traditional values and have the goal be educational excellence. This school system has a track record, it's had awards. This school system should be a very prominent and well-admired school system. We believe it has been in the past. We'd like to think that everybody in this room, everybody in this community would agree that it's important that we have a strong education system and that we have the emphasis on traditional basic values. We want excellence in education for our children and for this community and for this school system. And I think that's something we all can agree, the importance of the curriculum being held to and having a quality and a commitment in that education system should be something we can all agree to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone, I spoke at the last meeting, and so I'm going to keep this very short. I'm simply here on behalf of myself and my biracial daughter. I feel very strongly that this traditional values that you speak of, it's bigoted and it's racist, and diversity education, it is proven, there's data to support it. Diversity in education brings diversity in thought. Diversity is good for this community. Thank you.
We need to ask folks not to shout out and clap right now, okay? It is public participation. You do have 2 minutes. Please remember it is a school board meeting. If you have information about what's going on in the schools, we certainly welcome that. But that's what we're here for, and we do technically have to limit this time. So I would just ask everyone to please, hear everyone out respectfully.
Yeah, be courteous, be courteous. We're glad to hear all of you. Let's see, David Galladay. Galladay?
Galladay.
Okay.
Hi, I'm David Galladay. I'm a 25-year resident and the father of 2 Rocky River High School graduates. I want to thank you for what you do on the board and in the administration. My kids got a great education, and when my son needed help, the district stepped up in a big way. Thank you. You folks have invested many hours of your lives to make our schools consistently great, and for that you have my sincere appreciation. I believe you have our kids' best interests at heart. And because I believe that, I'm asking you to end the teaching of critical race theory in our schools. A terrible mistake has been made in allowing it into the district, but it is a mistake you can correct. I also know you are under pressure to maintain the status quo. You don't want to be labeled a bigot by ending a program ostensibly designed to promote diversity and inclusion. But look past the surface of these pleasant euphemisms, and it's easy to spot the harmful tenets of CRT within. When kids are asked to assign themselves to an identity group based on their race or ethnicity or gender or sexual orientation, this is critical race theory. Group identity is at the core of this belief system, as is assigning various levels of guilt or victimhood to the groups it creates. Under CRT, students are no longer seen as unique individuals with free will, but as anonymous bricks in a monolithic block of whiteness or color, collectively guilty of oppression or helplessly locked in perpetual victimhood. Do you see the irony? In their purported efforts to battle racism, the proponents of CRT have instituted the most racist ideology most of us have seen in our lifetimes. It alienates kids from one another, makes them suspicious, resentful, and mistrusting of each other. Wouldn't it be better just to say to a child, just be yourself. Don't worry about labels or fitting in with the crowd. You're a unique and beautiful person with a unique purpose that's yours alone to discover.
Thank you, David, thank you, thank you, thank you. Is Mark here? Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Hi. I will give out copies of an email conversation thread from back in 2015. Parents had recognized that something was wrong with the DCNAO curriculum, and that was 6 years ago, well before this topic was national news. It was wrong because it was wrong. Recently, my wife spoke with one of the fathers on this email thread. His son said the diversity content was presented to us as fact. We were told, you need to start believing it. If you don't believe it, you need to check your thought pattern. Due to the shocked reaction of the students and parents, the administration cut back the length of this course. At some level, there was a recognition of a problem, yet the administration still continued to trust the DCNAO. But why? They clearly created problems years ago when they were teaching, and we know they hide their curriculum. Did the administration simply ask them, are you teaching CRT? And they answered, nope, and we were fine with that? The events from 2015 alone should have been a red flag. Like, what did we just inflict upon our children? But no, we signed the contract again and again. This whole thing is like teenagers on social media, living in fear of what others think. Except here, it's grown adults using our tax money to check the right boxes. It's embarrassing. The Ohio social and emotional standards are not requirements. Each district can decide for itself. Paulo de Maria said, a district's choice will be informed by the values and needs of its local community. Rocky River can think for itself. Trust in this administration is bleeding out, and it's time for a tourniquet. Terminate the contract.
Okay.
2 minutes.
I had one helper because I couldn't do two things at one time. That's all right.
I understand, I can't do 2 things at once.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Ann Robbins, and I need you to listen to this carefully.
Has separated us into groups. You have a dominant group, and you have a subordinate group. So if you think about dominant group right now, they're considered the norm. They enjoy unearned privileges. That means privileges that they may not necessarily have worked to earn, which means that the subordinate group have to work really, really hard for the privileges and advantages that they get. So enjoying unearned privileges and advantages because of their group identity. Then who is in this dominant group in the United States? White middle class. Okay, so let's talk about subordinate groups. They're considered abnormal, different, deviant, or thought less of. Born into a world that is not organized to benefit them, and have to adapt to the rules that are set up by the dominant group.
You have just heard an audio tape evidence of an actual classroom teaching of Diversity 101 by a DCNAO instructor to a 9th grade class at Rocky River High School. A student who wishes to remain anonymous presented us with this tape from 2018. A longer version of this lesson can be found at our website, RockyRiverCitizensForTransparency.org. This is textbook critical race theory teaching. This is what you have repeatedly said it is not. Dr. Shope, Ms. Anderson, and the board, aren't you even a little disturbed we had to do your job for you? Your curriculum committee approved this, but now you have a chance to do the right thing. Stop this political agenda. Our teachers know how to relate to each student's individual character and personality. Give them some credit. Stay in your lane. It's a great lane. Educate our children and stick to academics.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was ironic that shortly after the last committee of the whole meeting on June 7th, where the board and superintendent attempted to convince the attendees that the JEDI program is not CRT indoctrination, it was ironic that at least 3 speakers from the group of JEDI advocates laced their statements with terms directly from CRT ideology. BLM, well represented at the last meeting, strongly backs JEDI program. It did not go unnoticed that members of BLM made a point to approach the superintendent and board members prior to the start of the meeting. Given they are supporting the same curriculum, it might appear the board and superintendent are teaming with BLM. BLM is a group founded in Marxism, publicly supports defunding the police, is anti-capitalism, anti-nuclear family, anti-private property ownership, anti-anything to do with historical measures of success, potential growth, and achievement. Aside from these ideologies, BLM and Antifa have been credibly connected to causing $1 to $2 billion in damage during last summer's violent riots, burning and looting, and somehow achieve social justice. Given the Marxist ideology of BLM and the prolific use of language such as implicit bias, white privilege, and the misguided white fragility by the strongest advocates of JEDI program, it would be a suspension of all reason to believe that CRT is not being inculcated into river schools K through 12. And today we are finally seeing the evidence that it is, thanks to the efforts of our community. The equity program is designed to pit students, parents, teachers, and the broader community against one another. You as a body have succeeded in bringing ideological politics into the classroom, but now the curtain has been pulled back. The superintendent has indicated a statement would be released regarding JEDI program. I have a suggestion. As a board member of DCNEO, as well as being superintendent, I recognize that steering contacts to DCNEO worth hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer funds without their consent for non-academic, non-proven ideological program is a conflict of interest. I will terminate the contract and program immediately and truly work to establish unity and trust in our schools and the community.
My name is Jacob Kane, and I'm a recent graduate of the Rocky River School System. I participated in the Diversity Center program. I still remember the instructor teaching us that, quote, only white people can be racist. This is not an exaggeration. She said it matter-of-factly as though it was not up for debate. I remember it not just because of the confusion it caused amongst my classmates, but because of how backwards and misleading this idea is. To state that only one race is capable of prejudice and mistreatment of other races is both logically indefensible and suspiciously close to racism. One instructor asked us to describe her and would not stop calling on people until someone finally stated that she was black. Why did she insist that we use her race to identify her? This is labeling people by their race and it's counterproductive. We were also taught about inherent bias, the supposed subconscious, unremovable racism present in all white people. The Diversity Center teachings have a negative impact on all students, but the most harm is done to students of color. Telling a black student that their white peers inherently view them through the lens of negative stereotypes could make them begin to question their friendships. They might wonder if their friends secretly view them as inferior. They might wonder if their friends only spend time with them to prove they are not like the bad white people. They could begin to feel alone in a place where they once felt welcome. These thoughts are damaging to a young individual, especially during the turbulent social landscape of high school.
Students spend an enormous amount of time worrying about social relationships, trying to avoid criticism and the disapproval of their peers. If a student feels that another student won't like or trust them, they will be reluctant to interact with them. For many socially anxious students, it is simply not worth it to risk being labeled racist because of a botched interaction with a black classmate. They will choose to avoid the problem by avoiding the interaction altogether. The training intended to solve racism instead drives a wedge between black and white students. Unproven theories were presented to us as facts. We were told that it was important that we believe these theories and that we needed to change our thought patterns if we didn't. These ideas do nothing to better the lives of students of color and provide no benefit to white students either. We do not need to be trained to interact with diverse groups. When left alone, children don't care about each other's race. Only by drawing attention to it and instilling a sense of division does real racism spread.
I am here to talk about our teachers who are subjected to training from the Diversity Center of Northeast Ohio, and as a result, they face an environment of fear and intimidation. Teachers are afraid to speak out, but the time has come to expose the truth about their experiences from stories they so courageously told. Most teachers do not want to go through diversity training. They lose valuable teaching time. They have to participate in role-play activities in which they feel watched, and if any dare to challenge the agenda, the activity is stopped and they are corrected. Teachers are encouraged to rehearse responses for when parents object that their children are too young to be talking about LGBTQ content. Teachers are given ways to respond to misguided parents who do not want teachers encouraging their child's transgender ideas, alternate names, or pronouns. Teachers are taught to use pronouns and names that don't fit the biology of the child. Teachers are taught to use terms like sex assigned at birth, female or male. They are required to discuss scenarios with only one acceptable approach. Teachers are trained that they need to be aware of their conscious and unconscious bias, otherwise they may teach lessons they didn't intend and unknowingly abuse students. Teachers are taught to question their religious faith. Teachers are taught that racism only flows in one direction, that only people of color can be discriminated against. They are taught that white people should be discriminated against when it advances the cause of minorities. Get rid of teacher diversity training. Teachers should never be put in a position to undermine parents' authority over their own children, and it is outrageous to expect teachers to follow all the rules, scenarios, one-way approaches, rehearsed responses, and a chart full of gender pronouns. Leave our teachers alone and give them back their time to teach. They want to teach children subjects that they love, not sit through diversity training and indoctrination.
And I'd like to add to Karen's speech that I just heard today that Mr. Toner was very vocal in his diversity training and voicing his opposition to what he was being taught, but we don't have Mr. Toner anymore. I'm Ann Douglas, and I'm speaking on behalf of Rocky River Citizens for Transparency. Yesterday, 4 of us from Rocky River testified in the State House in support of House Bill 327 to prohibit teaching divisive concepts. Our testimony and that of many others can be found on the website RockyRiverCitizensForTransparency.org. I recommend that you listen to it. I can't give it all now. Our district and the DCNEO have both been claiming that they are not teaching critical race theory. This claim was even printed in today's Westlife newspaper. Schoaf says we don't teach it. In order to discern if that claim is true, you have to know what critical race theory is. I have spent a lot of time lately learning about critical race theory, and I encourage you to do the same, to look at the evidence that will be presented today and to draw your own conclusions. Back to my curriculum request that I've been talking about. I have requested to see the diversity curriculum of my children, which I am entitled to a prompt inspection by Ohio Code 3313.60. And this request has been frustrated and delayed by evasion and stall tactics. And if I had not retained an attorney, I would probably still be waiting to see until July 27th, which is when the Diversity Center proposed to show me the curriculum. A month and a half after my request, which would have allowed them lots of time to rewrite the curriculum. But I was finally able to inspect the curriculum, at least what they chose to show me, and I do not have time to discuss all the examples, so please do listen to my State House testimony where I discuss it in greater detail. I have made some visual aids of things that I did find in the curriculum, the identity wheel of how children should draw a picture to identify themselves with the categories of the groups.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Elaine and Ken Kennard.
I have nothing prepared. My position is, with hers also, we need to see the curriculum, and I want to know where the textbooks are bought from. And if they don't listen to us and follow what we want as a community, we must replace the board, get rid of the superintendent, knock out the school levies until they listen to us. We are the people in this community that run the school board.
I'm Elaine Kennard. I grew up in Detroit. I also I went to an 80% black high school in Detroit. We did not know the difference between black and white. I taught don't laugh.
Please don't.
That's not nice, that's not kind. The thing is that I taught in the inner cities of Detroit. I saw that the parents didn't support the schools. Everyone says teachers are so bad. But if you don't have the parents support our children in the inner cities, we don't have a school. So we have to learn to work together. We have to learn not to see color. We have to learn to see each other. And that's all I'm saying.
Next up is Judy Moore. Judy, is Judy here? Okay. Hello, Judy.
I really came to address the board.
You can talk right to us. It's fine. Whichever way you
My
want.
name is Judy Moore, and I've been a resident of Rocky River for close to 40 years. My daughter attended the Rocky River schools and for her entire career, and my granddaughter is currently a student here. I decided to speak today because I'm concerned that we will stop teaching things like diversity because of what I believe to be a loud vocal minority who I believe doesn't fully understand what the critical race theory actually is, has decided to label what Rocky River schools teach about diversity as critical race theory. In Rocky River schools, we are talking about the JEDI program, which covers justice, equality, diversity, and inclusion. It is not critical race theory, which has been taught at the college level for many years. Currently, things like the 1619 Project, which addresses some of America's flaws, has made critical race theory a hot-button issue. This vocal minority I mentioned will make a loud commotion about it and try to drown out those of us who I believe are in the majority who support the diversity program that has been a part of Rocky River schools for several years. I am proud that our Board of Education has chosen to teach about diversity. We don't know what we don't know, and I'm hopeful our young people can share with us some of what they've learned that was left out of our own education. Thank you for your commitment to ready our children for their future. Thank you.
Daryl Forrest. Daryl? Hello.
Hey. I'm sure you're tired of hearing me too.
Hi.
So here you go. So Rocky River schools were ranked 419th in the country per U.S. World Report, number 4 in Northeast Ohio for the high schools, and 11th in the state. And the students know the difference between CRT and what Black Lives Matter stand for, unlike some of the others. So why are you taking your educational cues from outsiders from lower ranking school districts? And if your buddies in the state legislature get your way, they will lobotomize our kids on learning the truth about this country's history, placing them further behind their international counterparts. And so, how will the teachers actually teach about Juneteenth, by the way, with that happening? Germany owned up to the atrocities perpetrated during the Holocaust and make sure everyone's taught what happened so they can be educated and aware to not allow it to happen again. They understand the phrase that people who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it, and their kids are just fine. So what are you afraid of? Stop hiding behind your kids when it comes to learning the truth. You either don't know or worse yet, don't care about when it comes to teaching the truth in U.S. history, which is already watered down. When we decide to engender respect and trust, our kids will be taught the good, the bad, and the ugly about our history, for they're smart enough to grasp it if only we're brave enough to teach it. If the Rocky River School District wants to maintain its distinction and excellence with the state and country, it will continue its collaboration with the Diversity Center of Northeast Ohio and move forward, not backward, in adopting D&I programs like the 5 for 5 program that we petitioned and had 300 signatures for. Our kids need to be educated on things like this so that they get older, wiser, and aware that they are prepared to critically evaluate today's and tomorrow's events through the lens of a fully educated contributor to society. Thanks.
We have Natasha Miller. Natasha? I say it right? Natisha. I didn't know there was an E there. Natisha. Very good.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Natisha Miller, and I am a proud alumna of Rocky River High School, class of 2005, Go Pirates. I am standing here today because I had a few concerns. I had the pleasure of attending this powerhouse, this educational powerhouse, and of course, this was a life-changing experience for me. Coming from Cleveland Municipal School District to Rocky River, you can only imagine what my experiences were. I had my first racist experience outside of Rocky River High School, where a young lady called me the N-word very violently and vilely. And I thought to myself, wow, this is a change. Never had this happen any other place. But now I'm here, this is where I am, this is what I have to deal with. I dealt with it. I also had the pleasure of being a part of the first broadcasting class of Rocky River High School, where my teacher was none other than Mr. Sam Gifford. And I was very disturbed because I noticed that when Black History Month came around, there was no mention of it. There was nothing. There was nothing. Had really no curriculum, no anything. I asked Mr. Gifford for an opportunity to be a part of the broadcasting show. I was the weather girl, but I also asked him for a very small segment at the end of that to give a little-known Black history fact every single day of Black History Month. And Mr. Gifford, you allowed me that, and I appreciate that because I was able to give what I felt was missing at the moment. And although it was very small, it was what I wasn't receiving in the classroom, and I appreciate that. What I want to say to you all today is that my experiences 20 years ago led me to this day. And I say 20 years ago because it's almost been 20 years since I've been out of high school, okay? I'm old, okay? All right. But
Thank you, Natisha. Thank you.
my son is here, and I want him to be able to experience
Thank you.
Rocky River School
Thank you very
District.
much.
But he cannot do that with what is being taught right now.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Hi everyone. Hello. I am proud of the community members who are speaking out in support of the important work our school district is doing. As a public entity, it's certainly our right to see how and what our district is teaching our kids. Now, there's a recording floating around of programming that's no longer used with an individual who my understanding is no longer affiliated with that program. It's also my understanding that we will have the opportunity to actually see the district's current diversity curriculum in action. Thank you for that. As you may know, the Diversity Center of Northeast Ohio also offers programming targeted to parents and community members. I've heard from dozens of Rocky River parents who would like to participate in a community forum around diversity that would be offered by the school, giving us a chance to come together and explore how we can help our children excel in a diverse society. Now I know there are many of us here who are longtime Rocky River and lifelong Cleveland residents. You may have heard of the National Council of Christians and Jews. They're an organization that was founded nearly 100 years ago to fight bigotry and exclusion. You could say they are the experts. They are the OG diversity leaders, and 15 years ago, NCCJ rebranded and became the Diversity Center of Northeast Ohio. Clearly, they have a long, rich history of being positive leaders in our community. The other experts we're lucky to have are those of the Ohio Department of Education. My understanding is our public school district, who, let's be clear, is also an expert at what they do, follow guidelines set forth by ODE. I don't know about you, but I am a busy person, and I'm very thoughtful about how I spend my time. I'm always listening for what the experts are saying. I don't waste my time listening to talking heads who represent outside interests. All our kids, my kid, your kid, deserve to be taught as a whole child, and us responsible adults need to embrace our job being role models of how to be lifelong learners and caretakers of each other. Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these siblings of mine, you did for me.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming this evening. I appreciate the input that everyone shared here, all the different points of view. I believe the dedication and support of this community for our schools is certainly envied by others and is a factor in our success. I believe that. I want you to know that it was never anyone's intent to cause a divide as I hear tonight. And if you can believe that, I would ask you to. The programming, I do want to say the programming being discussed this evening is a very, very small percentage of the curriculum programming in the Rocky River schools. So the
listen to us.
Please let her finish. So my team does have an important task ahead of us starting the school year after a pandemic. I don't want to let this sidetrack us from a strong start to the beginning of the school year, a successful start to the 21 school year, nor from the remarkable things throughout the year that many of you have recognized us for and that we are often recognized for as well. So I appreciate everyone coming out. I will work with my team of teachers so that we can continue to do our best every day to make sure that all of our students feel included and valued here in the school. While we've had a partnership with DCNEO for and provided diversity programming since 2013 to our students, we've never done so when the General Assembly in Columbus is considering pending legislation exactly about this. So that is something that I haven't done before.
Can you say that again? I didn't hear that.
Sure. I said, while we have provided programming with DCNEO since 2013, we have not done so while there is legislation pending about this exact thing in Columbus. I mean, that's not up for debate, I don't believe, right? So,
I'm asking that it might be best if my team regroups and sees what we can do as far as our programming for next year. I don't, I want to look at what our programming can look like for 21-22. But I do also want to wait and see what Columbus has to say about it and what they can tell. They will. This will have a one way or the other, right? So what if I take that on with my team and see what we can do with the same topics as far as, we've shared, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I did read in your testimony that you even, there are parts of it that you were okay with even.
There were parts that were good, but there were parts that were very clearly critical race theory.
I
in my interpretation.
I understand that. So my thought is, can I pause while Columbus does what Columbus does? Can I take it on me? What are your thoughts on my team, whether it's my teachers and counselors and working with those others that work on my team, whether it's some of our consultants from McKeon and stuff? Can I see what I can do with programming, and maybe while Columbus and this discussion is happening down there, can I put DCNEO on pause until Columbus comes to an end? But I don't want to say that I'm going to stop. I want to try it. Can I try it? What are your thoughts on that?
I think DCNEO is a great resource, but you also have, a lot of resources in your team, your staff, and I think it's good to tap into that, see what they have to offer.
I do not want to see us stop working with DCNEO.
We can't hear you. I cannot hear.
See us stop working with DCNEO. I do not want to see that happen. I hear what you're saying about having to see what happens in Columbus, and certainly that will have a bearing on what happens next year. But Liz, I think you do an amazing job with the curriculum. You always have. I think you have our kids' best interests at heart, and I trust you to do what you think is best in this arena going forward.
Okay.
I appreciate what you're proposing. I appreciate you taking a pause and looking at content, who delivers it, how it's delivered. I also know that you're very committed to social emotional programming, as am I. So I appreciate that you're going to do a collaborative effort with teachers, with all the input that's been heard here, to determine what we do going forward. And there are some outside influences, the legislature being one that will impact this. So I think that's a good suggestion. I like your suggestion.
Liz Anderson, we're lucky to have you. So I would go with whatever, I trust you, as I trust our teachers and counselors. So whatever you guys feel like you can handle, and if not, there's great resources in town, and there's no reason not to reach out. But I have faith. So if you think you can handle something, or you want to give a pause, I support you completely.
Liz, could you also clarify one other thing? State law also allows parents to opt out of any of the social emotional programming, whether it's the required dating violence or if not required, but we are responsible for providing dating violence education, suicide prevention education. There is a whole laundry list of things that we are responsible to provide as